Good evening, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about my life and my true passion of modernism. My name is Joanna Barnes. As a child, I lived in the city of Detroit, Michigan. While growing up, I was constantly fascinated with the American dream. I was tired of the idle, cold life I led in Detroit, but the stories I often heard of the East. Stories of prosperity, parties, and the grandiose lifestyle itself gave me hope. So in my final year at high school, I got accepted into the University of Columbia, in which I decided to attend. Columbia University was my ticket out, as it was at the heart of the Big Apple City, New York City. I wanted to be a part of the classy parties in my favorite dress, accompanied by a sophisticated gentleman. Admittedly, I was already in a stupor from the cheap liquor home brewed in Detroit. But I yearned for the sophistication that can only be achieved with the American dream. I was enamored by the Big Apple and its reputable fun. I couldn't wait to leave Detroit and go live my dream of the American dream. I was in love with the music, the dancing, and more importantly, the entertainment. I loved it all. Columbia was my ticket into becoming a part of this world. However, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. I was a woman in the 1920s trying to make it big. When I got to Columbia, it was a big slap in the face. I attended no parties, drank nothing, and I definitely did not have the deep pockets I desperately needed. It was a lot harder than how the media portrayed it to be. No one had told me that to even get to a party, you needed connections, which I had no way of acquiring. I had no idea how to even get close to acquiring those connections. Until one day, in my analysis of literature class, a boy named John Walker started passing out invitations to his 22nd birthday party. I happened to get one of those invitations, and this was my true ticket. My true ticket into the world that I had always dreamed of. One thing led to another, and I finally met that gentleman I mentioned before, John. I had known John for some time now, but he had always seemed reserved to himself and let his mysterious presence speak for itself until we were assigned to a modernism project. John and I both ended up becoming authors. We were both so in love with this American dream, we started to write about it while in the middle of it all. The reason I was so in love with all of this was for one reason, and it was everything that modernism represented and stood for. Modernism imparts self-consciousness in literature with its experimentation and skepticism. Unlike other eras, modernism is not militant, nor is it pacifist. In fact, it is a bold experiment of the mind, with the rejection of superficial ideas and a revolutionary perspective on the world. It helped me, along with others, to see the world not in ideals, but to see the dissonance of society itself. It is honest with the fallibility of heroes, more human. It is empathetic. It emphasizes experimentation, and the fragmentation of society. And it also rejects superficiality and focuses on the individuality like democracy. It also shows that the American dream is achievable through hard work and determination. It is spiritually empty because of the subjectivity of the era. The subjectivity is expressed in the individual, not spiritually. Providence has two contexts. The first one being that God or nature is providing protective or spiritual care. And this was from before modernism. After modernism, there was a timely preparation for future eventualities. So, what is modernism, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. Modernism is a strong and intentional break with tradition. This break include a strong reaction against established religious, political, and social views. It is the belief that the world is created in the act of perceiving it. That is, the world is what we say it is. It is also demonstrating that there's no such thing as the absolute truth. Modernism goes with the view that all things are relative. Modernism has no connection with history or institutions. Their experiences that of alienation, loss, and despair. Modernism celebrates the individual and inner strength. It is also concerned with the subconsciousness. A great example of everything that modernism represents. Let's look at one of my all-time favorite characters, Daisy Buchanan, created by the great F. Scott Fitzgerald from the great classic, The Great Gatsby. Daisy is a perfect representation of everything that modernism is. The reason why is because of her spectacular character development. She represents self-consciousness in many of her actions. The first way she shows this self-consciousness was when she keeps her daughter a secret from one and only Jay Gatsby. This action shows self-consciousness for the reason that she is scared that Gatsby will leave her or no longer love her. You could think that she would embrace her daughter, but because of her self-consciousness, she decides to keep this to herself in order to preserve the image that Gatsby has of her. Daisy also shows self-consciousness when Gatsby asks her to leave Tom and be with him. But she does not want to because she is scared of what people will say about her. To me, this was the greatest self-consciousness known that she can portray. Daisy also shows self-consciousness when Gatsby asks her to leave Tom and be with him. But she does not want to leave because she is scared of what people will say about her. To me, this was the greatest act of self-consciousness that one can portray. Daisy also plays into skepticism because she, along with everyone else, is interested in how Gatsby got his money. Because he's not old money, so many people want to know whether he's in an illegal business or his money is legit. Like I mentioned before, modernism is not pacifist, but it is experimental with the mind, with a rejection of superficial ideas. So by Daisy loving Gatsby, she is rejecting superficial ideas. Daisy was in love with Gatsby long before he was rich and lived this extravagant life. Another way that The Great Gatsby is an excellent example of modernism is because the storyline is all very empathetic. The empathy from this story comes from the narrator himself, Nick Carraway. In the beginning of the story, you could already tell that Nick would be this way. When he informs the readers that he preserved all judgment in order to understand people, to go into other events that support this, Nick was also one of the few at Gatsby's funeral. Not even Daisy attended. Nick even planned the funeral, even though they were not the best of friends. But he still did it. And if that isn't empathetic, I don't know what is. Modernism also emphasizes experimentation. And there's a lot of experimentation in this story. I mean, where do I even begin? First, the whole Daisy experiences having an affair. Nick experiences the American dream with a front row seat. Gatsby experiences true love, the American dream, and taking a break of the American dream itself. In fact, Gatsby's whole entire life was an experiment. Everything he did was an experiment. And that's how he got to the American dream. He wasn't scared to experiment with the things such as being a janitor. Modernism is the American dream, and this book depicts it perfectly. How when you work hard and set goals, you can achieve anything. The Great Gatsby is a great book as to what modernism is. So again, thank you for having me and have a nice night.